Welcome back to the Radio Academy podcast. I'm your host, Georgie Jameson, and this week our guest is Rhys Hughes, Head of Live Music and Events for BBC Popular Music. With a whole summer of live music across the BBC, like Radio 1's Big Weekend and Glastonbury, I wanted to know how you handle the logistics of massive OBs and what goes into the planning of these events. But first, I asked Rhys to tell me what his job entails and what he's responsible for.
I'm responsible for the live events and live music across all the kind of popular music portfolio at the BBC. So Radio 1, Radio 2, 6 Music, 1 Extra, Asian Network and BBC Introducing. We deliver the festivals for Radio 1, Big Weekend. We deliver Radio 2 in the Park, which is obviously the Greenfield site. And then we deliver 6 Music Festival, Asian Network certified. But then, of course, we work with a lot of other festivals where we're the broadcast partner. So obviously Glastonbury being the big one, also Reading and Leeds for Radio 1. Reading and Leeds is very much a sort of young demographic that fits very much with the Radio 1 demographic. But then things we're working with Transmit in Scotland as a broadcast partner with Radio 1, Park Live Festival, Dance Festival in Manchester. We're working with Love Supreme for Radio 2. I've currently got a team out in Primavera in Barcelona that are recording content for 6 Music. And then during the winter months, or the kind of autumn and winter months, then for a variety of events, both in-house and out-of-house, for example, Radio 2 in concert, but obviously then club nights and smaller events, arena or venue size events in the winter. So yeah, across all the 5 pop networks really is what my team works across.
It must be a massive team. I mean, tell me about the team. How many people would you have working under your direction on all these different events?
I mean, I'm bound to say this. The team's not big enough, Georgie. We need more people.
Well, it sounds like it. I mean, there's just so many things.
Yeah, I mean, in the live music and events team, we've got about 25 people. 6 of those are kind of work on the sort of the live music side. So that's delivering the sessions for Radio 1, Radio 2, 6 Music, the kind of business as usual sessions. And then the events team is about 19, 20 people. What we tend to do over the summer is we flex up with freelancers. So we've got a really good pool of freelancers that we bring in on kind of short-term 2-3 month contracts over the summer, because we need that, level of sort of personnel to deliver the events. I mean, just to give you an idea, Big Weekend in Liverpool is about a year in the planning, from the first initial conversations with Liverpool City Council, all the site visits that we did, in Sefton Park, to deliver an event for over 100,000 people over 3 days. And I suppose the difference with, say, a commercial festival is that we bring in this huge broadcast infrastructure as well. So obviously Tom Grennan was on BBC One, Sam Fender and Ed Sheeran were on BBC One, Mumford and Sons, who headlined Sunday night, were on BBC Two, but then all sets on the main stage and the second stage are available on iPlayer, live on Radio 1 over the weekend. So there's a massive kind of backstage broadcast infrastructure for these events.
Well, this is it. It's not just the audio, is it? Everything is filmed, going out on iPlayer. It's going out on some of the main channels as well. So you're working across radio, but TV, the iPlayer team as well. And you're coordinating all that. Logistically, how on earth do you do that?
It is quite full on, I think it's fair to say. I mean, in terms of the kind of logistics of the event, we work with a festival production company. So Far and Beyond with a company that we worked on Big Weekend in Liverpool with. They're going to sort of partner with us to deliver Radio 2 in the Park, which is in Chelmsford in Essex in September. Previous to that, it's Festival Republic had delivered Big Weekend and Radio 2 in the Park. How do we coordinate it all? I mean, it's very much a partnership with the company that we're working with, also with the local authority. So we work very closely with Liverpool City Council over the delivery of Big Weekend, because there's obviously a big traffic management plan that needs to be, put in place. You can imagine it's getting 35,000 people travelling to Sefton Park in Liverpool, but also getting them home at night. And one of the big pushes across the BBC, but also with Liverpool, is around sustainability. So also Liverpool are part of the UN Accelerator City program. We wanted to completely minimise people travelling by car to the event. So there was no public car parks for Sefton Park. So it was working very much with the council on the train and the bus operation.
That's kind of elements of things that I hadn't even thought about. My head is thinking about the acts and the music. But yeah, that whole kind of moving thousands of people around. And sustainably as well, thinking about the environmental impact.
Yeah, I mean, we introduced quite a few sort of new things for Big Weekend in Liverpool this year. We had plastic recyclable cups, that the audience paid £1 levy on, but then they're properly recycled. We were sort of baling things, breaking things up into different things to be recycled. But then you also have to take into account how far away from Liverpool the plant where the things are getting recycled are. And then you've got the broadcast on top and, dealing with the acts. I mean, we don't book the acts. The acts for Big Weekend are booked by the head of music at Radio 1. But then we're obviously facilitating, working with audio production and the studios and presenters. And it's a huge operation, not only bringing some world-class acts to the stage in Liverpool, but also managing the presenters and, getting them on stage to do intros. If you get a chance, do have a look at the Sam Fender set, who headlined on Saturday night on the iPlayer, because some of the drone shots we've got of Liverpool City in the background with the two cathedrals, the Liver building and the Mersey, and then the drone is actually in the pyros. It looks absolutely incredible. So well worth having a look at.
Radio 1's Big Weekend, Liverpool.
The song's about my old man. It's called Spit of You. I want to hear you singing. Is everybody having a good time? You all right? Class. Sorry, I'm spinning out up here. This is the most nervous I think I've ever been, and I have no idea why. So, I hope it's all right out front.
Radio 1's Big Weekend, Liverpool.
Even just in terms of Radio 1, I was having a look at the big summer of music just for Radio 1. And it's just bam, bam, bam. You've got Parklife and Download at Manchester and Donington on the same weekend. Then the big one coming up this weekend, Glastonbury. Then there's Transmit at Glasgow. Then you're all off to Ibiza, Malta. There's Boomtown at Hampshire. There's Reading and Leeds. There is no let up at all. So when you were talking about Big Weekend being a year in the planning, it's not just that one. Do they all take a year to plan? You must have the biggest wall chart.
We do have a pretty big wall chart with kind of timelines and various things. No, it wouldn't take us a year of planning, say, to deliver Parklife, because we're only going in as the broadcast partner. The ones that take the real length of time are Radio 2 in the Park and Radio 1, because there are events. I mean, Glastonbury is a beast, as you know. I think this will be my 33rd Glastonbury. That's not all working. I'm showing my age, but I went as a punter first in 1985, and a friend of mine sent me a photograph of the ticket actually for Glastonbury in 1986, and it was 16 quid. 16 quid in 1986 felt like quite a lot of money.
It was a lot of money, wasn't it? I'm sure my age now as well. Rhys.
2025, that's peanuts, isn't it? But
yeah, it wouldn't even buy you a burger.
No, it wouldn't. No. I mean, Glastonbury's the granddaddy of festivals. There's no question.
Yeah.
I think they operate 45 stages across the site, and that's just official stages. I mean, I love Glastonbury. The one thing that we do have at Glastonbury, our outward facing, is the BBC Introducing Stage, which is a really great opportunity for young grassroots artists to get to play Glastonbury. Obviously, they're clamouring to do that, to play Glastonbury. So that's brilliant. But then, my team's job is to facilitate getting the presenters on and off site, some of the, the radio programs and the TV and the recordings. I mean, my live music team deliver all the audio you see on the TV is delivered by my team for the sets at Glastonbury.
You just said Glastonbury's a beast. Back in 2017, I think, is that when you first started as head of live music and events, 2017?
Yeah, previous to that, I was head of programs for Radio 1 and 1 Extra, but I'd been around live events for a very long time through my work at Radio 1.
You had a bit of a baptism of fire because your first event was the biggest weekend across 4 nations, and you described that as a beast, and it gave you lots of sleepless nights. Has it got easier? Have you got a process now?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think I do. Yeah, I mean, that was a baptism of fire. Delivering 4 festival sites over the same weekend in the 4 nations was quite full on. I've got to be honest. Yeah, it was.
That sounds like an understatement.
Yeah,
Rhys.
no, it was a big ask.
As your first big task in the job.
No, yeah. I mean, the first big one was, I think, Radio 2 in Hyde Park in 2017. But yeah, I was brought in to deliver Biggest Weekend, I did spend every kind of Sunday afternoon either on a train or about to get on a plane that we were flying to, because we delivered Six Music in Belfast that weekend. So yeah, it was a baptism of fire. It taught me a lot. A hell of a lot. Even the differences in kind of licensing laws between Scotland and Northern Ireland are slightly different to how they are in England and Wales. Working with, different local authorities, working with the police forces. My role within the BBC is actually very outward focused. It's dealing with local authorities, local police. It's not sort of just internal BBCs. That part of the job I find really quite enjoyable. The thing that's probably changed the most, it's no secret, the Manchester bombing of the Ariana Grande concert has absolutely kind of changed the live event game in terms of it's much more dealing with your kind of counter-terrorism provisions now, because if you think you've got 35,000 people in a field, that they can be a target. That kind of counter-terrorism work with the local police forces is hugely important for these events now.
There's a lot of different stakeholders involved, isn't there?
Yeah.
And again, that's like, as soon as you said that about that terrible atrocity in Manchester with the Ariana Grande concert, I'm like, oh yeah, of course, you've got to think about not just moving this huge amount of people around, but their safety, their health and safety, their well-being as well. And all that goes with that in terms of counter-terrorism. That's a big thing that's changed.
That's kind of what keeps me awake sometimes at night, Georgie, is, around that, because, BBC live events need to be absolute gold standard. There's a lot of responsibility in bringing in 100,000 people into the Sefton Park in Liverpool over 3 days safely. It's crucially important. But, it's also the customer experience to make sure that all the customers, have a really good time, that the welfare provision is good, that the medical provision is good, even down to the choice of food. When I first started going to festivals in the 80s, it was basically burger vans and fish and chips. People are much more discerning now in what they want to eat at festivals. You can just see that. And it's also important that we use traders from the local area. From a sustainability point, there's no point bringing, a falafel truck from Oxford to Liverpool. All those kind of things are taken into account.
Yeah, it's about the local economy as well. And that's why towns and cities love it when things like Big Weekend come to them. I know how much it meant to Luton when it came to them, because it's a huge injection of cash and people into that local economy.
Absolutely. Luton Borough Council estimated we brought somewhere in the region of 5 to 5.5 million into the local economy for Luton. And, if you look back over the last 20 odd years of where Big Weekend has been, one of the things that we've been really keen to do is to go to cities that don't necessarily get the big artists coming through. So it's why in 2019 we delivered it in Middlesbrough rather than Newcastle, because the big acts all go to Newcastle. Luton's another example. Luton only half an hour outside London, but gets kind of slightly overlooked. It's why in 2023 we delivered it in Dundee, not in Glasgow or Edinburgh. Liverpool's slightly different, because actually Liverpool does get big gigs, but it was a long time since Radio 1 had been in the Northwest. I think Preston in 2007. That was a long time ago. And Big Weekend back in sort of the early 2000s was only a sort of 12, 15,000 capacity a day. We're obviously much bigger now.
The whole thing, the whole scope of live music events has got bigger and bigger over the years, and particularly with something like Radio 1. You're bringing in other parts of the Radio 1 family, and I'm thinking of like what's coming up with Ibiza, because Radio 1 dance is involved. So how important are these live music events for getting across the UK?
Yeah, it's hugely important to get across the UK in all four of the nations, that you don't live in this M25 bubble. I think that's hugely important. We do see an increase in reach and listening to Radio 1 in the areas that we've delivered big weekends. We had a massive spike of listening in Bedfordshire when we delivered Luton. We're already seeing that in Liverpool. So I think it's really important that we get across the whole country. And, and Radio 1's been in Ibiza since 1995. So I think it's 30 years of Radio 1 in Ibiza. Huge UK audience in Ibiza. Very, very important for Radio 1 Dance, but also for Radio 1. If you look at the Radio 1 Essential Mix, which is, I would argue, the premier kind of mix of global DJs over the last 30 years, it's a who's who, the Essential Mix. If you haven't done an Essential Mix, the list is phenomenal. So I think it's really important. But it's also important that we bring the next generation through in Ibiza. At 59, Georgie, I'm a little bit old for Ibiza now. So my number 2 will be delivering Ibiza this year, not myself.
Let's talk about the tech that's available since you started to put these events on. How has that changed?
I mean, we still go in with the sort of full trucks with a mixing desk to deliver the live sets, because the mix that goes out to the front of house to the audience of 35,000, the mix for radio and television needs to be different. In terms of big digital mixing desks, we're still using those. I think where it has really changed is if you wanted to record DJ sets in a club, you can almost do it with a box of tricks and a laptop now. 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. So, the technology has rapidly kind of increased, and the sound quality is better. Even in terms of the big PAs that we have in festival sites now, they're so directional now, and you can control them so much better than, say, even 20 years ago. So obviously, the big festival sites, we have to be careful about the noise limits on the perimeter fence. I can't pretend to fully understand it, but the directional, the sound modeling that can be done now is hugely advanced on where it was 20 years ago, to keep those decibel levels down for the audience who are external to the site. The sub bass that you get with dance music can be tricky, and it does travel far. But from a tech side, the PA companies that we work with now, and the PA companies that deliver festivals globally, are so much more advanced than they were, say, 15, 20 years ago.
And what about AI? Does that have a role to play now in any parts of your work? The planning, the tech, the logistics?
We're just beginning to use AI. There's quite a lot of AI conversations going on within the BBC as a whole, as you can imagine. Yes, to a certain extent, but it's only just starting. I mean, I think there are huge opportunities for that going forward, but because we're physically dealing with a festival site, we're just starting on that journey.
A big thank you to Rhys Hughes for being my guest, and good luck for Glastonbury this weekend. You can hear everything from the festival on BBC Sounds and see it all on the BBC iPlayer. The 30% freelancer early bird discount for the Radio Academy Festival tickets ends on the 30th of June, so don't hang about. Get your tickets booked today. Go to radioacademy.org/festival to find out more. That's where you'll also find details of our bursary scheme for the festival, and applications open for that very soon. Next week, the podcast comes from ePod, the Education Through Podcasting Conference at Morley College in London. The event brings together academics, researchers, and audio industry professionals to explore the use of podcasts within education. The Radio Academy will be there running a session on the power of storytelling in podcasts. I'll see you next week.